How do you make a fast shoe faster? That's the question faced by every running shoe manufacturer every year when they try and iterate on their previous best efforts. And to help us try and answer that question, New Balance have sent over the SC Elite version 5, their top of the line racing shoe, to see how it stacks up against version 4. In a world where every brand has a super shoe that claims to be even more super than their last version, and even more super than their competitors, it can be really difficult to know what that actually means. And in recent years, we've seen a bit of a divergence in the category, with some seeking to make shoes primarily for the elite market, with maximum energy return and extreme lightweight as their primary goals. But that can come at the expense of durability, ease of manufacture, which affects scarcity and price. On the other hand, some brands are taking a more holistic approach about how to make a shoe fast. But what even makes a racing shoe fast in the first place? To get to the bottom of that, we need to rewind a little bit. This is the New Balance SC Elite version 4. This has been my go-to race shoe for road running over the last 18 months or so, and I've done multiple 5k, 10k, half marathons, and triathlons from sprint distance to half Ironman in it. It's a great shoe. The full Piba foam is super bouncy and energetic, the pronounced rocker shape works really well to turn my midfoot strike into forward roll, and the energy arc plate stops things feeling too squishy and gives me a bit of snap at toe off. But bounciness alone in 2025 doesn't really cut it, and when the shoe was released it actually got quite a bit of flack from reviewers. For a start, it was quite heavy for a race shoe compared to its competitors. The upper was quite light and breathable but caused a lot of people problems. Out the box, the heel was way too stiff and lacked a lot of padding and needed some breaking in. I think the shoes rubbed more Achilles tendons than your physio has. The tongue was really short and wouldn't stay centered, and the laces were really thin and came up a bit too high. These have actually been replaced with elastic laces for triathlon. And the base of the shoe is really wide. It has a lot of inherent lateral stability, and that last point might not sound like much of a critique, and to me it was actually one of my favourite things about the shoe, but there's always going to be some people that conflate having extra stability in a shoe with it being a shoe designed for slower runners, even though everyone can benefit from being a bit more stable in the closing stages of a race when your form is breaking down and your legs feel like you're Bambi on ice. And at this point I'd like to remind you that this shoe won Olympic gold in triathlon on the feet of Alex Yee. So when New Balance announced the version 5 and it looked very different from the 4, I was intrigued and maybe a little bit skeptical. So what exactly is new? Well, they've kept a lot of what was good here. We've got 2 layers of fuel cell foam. Now fuel cells are a family of foams in New Balance, and the version in this shoe is made of 100% Piba. The carbon fiber energy arc plate is still there, and New Balance claim they've made this 38% stiffer in the forefoot than the previous version, and the start of the rocker has been moved further back under the forefoot to give you even more of that feeling of being pushed along by the shoe at toe off. But there's some bigger changes here. An increase in drop from 4mm to 8mm is going to be a welcome change for some, especially those with a history of Achilles or lower leg injuries. And there's been a pretty massive weight reduction here. This now comes in at around 215 grams in a men's sample, so we've shaved nearly 40 grams off the previous version. On first look, the upper seems quite similar to the previous version, but it's got a bit more stretch to it, and all round it's a bit more of an ergonomic fit. But thankfully we've got a much more padded and flexible heel collar, and the tongue comes up a bit higher and it's got a bit more padding under the lacing as well. And those laces themselves are a little bit thicker and they've got a little bit of stretch to them too. On the outsole, the forefoot grip in particular is massively improved since the previous version. Even on slippier wet tarmac or wet track surfaces, you can really feel it grip when you push off, and that translates to turning more of your energy into speed. And if I hold them side by side, you can see that whilst the forefoot width is pretty similar, the midfoot on version 5 is much narrower than version 4, and that's been done to save a bit of weight. However, New Balance claim they've maintained the stability in this by making the forefoot of the plate 38% stiffer and modifying the geometry of this. So that's all well and good on paper, but how do they actually feel? Running in them back to back with the old version, you really feel how all these updates have come together. It really does feel like a much faster shoe, and New Balance tell me that when working with Alex Yee in the lab to design this shoe, his running economy was really significantly improved in this compared to the old ones. I did probe them to try and give me some numbers, however they were understandably very hesitant to give any specific running economy figures for Alex, especially while he's still competing. Sure, they're not quite as stable as the previous version, and that's a little bit of a shame. Maybe they're not quite as plush and soft as the previous version was, but man do they feel faster. I really think New Balance managed to find a sweet spot here in terms of both performance and comfort, and I do think this is a shoe that's going to suit a lot of people for that reason.
So what does it mean for a shoe to be fast in 2025? Everybody's got carbon plates, they've all got the top race foams, but I think the thing that's been missing from that conversation for quite a long time now is individualization and how each person responds. New Balance obviously designed the shoe with Alex Yee in mind, so we know it's going to work for him, but whether or not it works for you is going to depend on your gait, your running history, your injury history, what type of races you're doing, and really the only way you're going to know is to try a pair out.
Trying a lot of race day shoes these days, they all feel fast. None of them really feel slow, but you do end up putting up with quite a lot. Things like blisters, rub, hot spots, instability, and you rationalize it by telling yourself that this is just what you need to put up with to be fast or wear a fast pair of shoes. Top tip here, call your local up and running store. They might just have a few different models for you to try out on our treadmills in store and remove any doubt you have around sizing. So I really think the key takeaway here is that you can have the highest energy return foam and lightest plates in the world, or the absolute overall lightest weight in the shoe. But if the shoe isn't comfortable on your feet and doesn't work well for your individual running style, it just isn't going to be the fastest option for you, because you're always going to be managing those issues on race day when it really counts.
And for me, the SC Elite V5 has got to be near the top of the list for shoes you want to try. It might not be the lightest, New Balance might not be shouting about how it's got the greatest energy return of any of its competitors, but it just feels great. They fix so many of the complaints that people have with version 4. Yes, maybe it's fractionally less stable and not quite as plush as the last version, but they certainly haven't been making the sacrifices that some brands have in terms of durability and comfort in the name of performance. And for me, that just can't be understated. Well done, New Balance. You made a good one.